Jan Russ, thanks for coming in today. So you were the casting director of Prisoner for the last few years on the show, and now you're casting director for Neighbours. Can you tell us a bit about what a casting director does about your day-to-day work?
Well, as a casting director, it's a bit of a combination of everything, of reading scripts, receiving sort of bios and photographs and demo tapes, going through those, following up the casting sessions with character breakdowns of different characters coming into the show. I have an assistant who helps sort of set up auditions, things like that. So it's a pretty constant thing of auditioning. There's also negotiations of contracts, renegotiations, picking up options, all those sort of things, discussing sort of storylines with the script producer, meetings with the producer, EP, casting meetings, all that sort of meeting actors. So it's a pretty busy schedule.
How did you actually get into the industry? Because originally you were an actress, weren't you?
Well, I guess because I was a performer myself initially, and it was a time that my marriage was sort of breaking up, and I had a young son, and I thought, well, I can't tour anymore or anything like that. I've got to have something a bit permanent. So I had worked in New Zealand and knew the Kiwi Mafia, as they were called here in Australia. New Zealanders who'd come over here to work in television, really. And so I'd worked with them over there, and they knew that I was looking for a job on the other side of the screen, and I had done that in New Zealand. I'd been a floor manager and production assistant and things like that. So I'd always been interested in the casting side. So I was given the opportunity to work for Crawford's initially, which was on Cop Shop, All the Rivers Run and those shows. And I was with them for about 12 months, and I got this secretive phone call from Ian Smith, who was associate producer on Prisoner at the time, and so he said, we really want you to meet with the producer, but it's all very hush-hush. Do you want to come? And I said, oh, okay. And free lunch, terrific. And so I went along to meet the producer of Prisoner, and he offered me the job with Grundy's.
Tell us about some of your memories of casting Prisoner.
I mean, I do remember some of the things, like I remember I cast Reb, Janet Andrawatha, and reading that character breakdown, and I always admired and had great respect for Janet as an actress. And although she'd never done this type of role before, I guess my experience as being as an actor knew that she would be capable of playing something like this. So I called her in to do it, and I thought she was terrific, and of course the rest is history. She had to have her hair cut really short and take on this really sort of strong image, and she was terrific. Also, I remember even casting Anne Charleston, I think, as Reb's mum. In the role, and always had great admiration and respect for her as well. And one of the funniest auditions that I think I ever did was the Boy George character. And called all these actresses in. Well, they arrived looking like Boy George. They had the ribbons, they had the hat. They looked fantastic, all of them. And I think... Pardon?
How many did you have to reckon?
Oh, look, I think probably, not loads, but I think it was probably about 10 or 11. And Peppy Trevor, of course, won that role. I mean, the beauty of Prisoner was that you had the opportunity of using wonderful actors. So I didn't, at that time, have to audition, literally, going through 100 people or something like that to try and find someone who was suitable. I mean, you immediately had an idea who was capable of doing a role. That was the beauty of working on something like Prisoner.
So tell us about the casting of a very important lead character, for instance, Glenda Linscott as Rita Connors.
I did audition a couple of actresses for the role, but to me, Glenda sort of really had that strength and that presence. I mean, she's, she has her height and everything else, but it's an inner quality, and a terrific actress to boot. With a lot of the actresses with Prisoner. Have had wonderful theatrical backgrounds. They've had lots of training compared to the young ones of today that don't have the background and training, unfortunately. And this is what I had to work with. So, I mean, it was absolute bliss to work on something like Prisoner, to be able to use these wonderful actresses. It was a wonderful experience because in a show like that, you had an opportunity with all these wonderful female roles, strong female roles, and the females dominated the show in more ways than one, obviously, and the male actors were sort of the peripheral characters. Whereas I think from the time Prisoner finished, in shows that have developed from then, that doesn't happen anymore. It's the males, once again, are in that top position, and the women are the peripheral characters that the male has the stronghold. And that is a great pity, because I know a lot of female actresses now really feel they're not really developing any good character roles because there's nothing to them. Prisoner gave them that opportunity, and they've never had that again.
And after finishing Prisoner, you then went on to Neighbours, and you discovered some amazing talent there. You've discovered, your Kylies, your Jasons, Guy Pearce, Natalie Imbruglia. Tell us a bit about that.
Those ones really stand out in my mind, not necessarily because of what they've become now, but because at the time it was. Well, at the time I did spot something, but none of us knew that it was going to be the success it's become overseas. We always hoped it was going to be, a huge success in Australia, but we didn't expect the international success that's come of it. But those, we're talking Guy and Craig and Natalie and Kylie and Jason. They all worked incredibly hard. They really worked hard, and I have so much admiration for all of them. They haven't, like some of them later than that have just sort of sat back and sort of thought, I'm in Neighbours, I'm going to be an international star, I can just sit back here and I don't have to do anything. Those kids worked hard for what they've achieved, and they deserve everything that they've got. I just wish... I guess Prisoner has had a success, not quite like Neighbours, but, it's just extraordinary the way people still talk about Prisoner now. Years down the track after the show was finished. It's just incredible. Although it was sort of set in a prison and these nasty creatures and things like that, it was great to work on. And it's just extraordinary that years later, it still has this incredible following. We had the reunion party
how's that?
Not so long ago, which was just fantastic. And we had it at the Forum in Flinders Street, which is a huge venue. And people flew in from UK, Europe, all over Australia. And we had a huge crowd of people there. And the moment that will stay in my mind forever was they said to people, move down to the stage. And so people started to move towards the stage, and suddenly you could hear these voices starting to sing the theme song. The curtain came up, and then there was the scrim. The scrim started to come up, and here was all the cast of Prisoner on stage singing the theme song. Well, the gasp from the audience was just... And it was just fabulous. It was just amazing to see all these familiar faces right across the stage, male, female, the whole lot of them, singing, the theme song. It was just a beautiful moment. Wow. Yeah. And the fans were just so excited to be there. And they were extraordinary. They were walking dictionaries on the show. They literally knew everything. And although I played a guest character, Mrs. Daniels in the show, played mother to Lisa Crittenden's character, I had a couple of people who came up to me who remembered. And at the time I couldn't even remember my character's name. And I think I said, and they said, oh, Mrs. Daniels. And I went, oh, yeah, that was the character I played, yes. It was extraordinary. They knew everything, absolutely everything about the show.